What can you eat when nothing sounds good? This may seem like a weird question for a lot of people. If your case is that eating is the best part of your day, that you're always thinking about new recipes you can try, always thinking about food, always looking forward to eating. But for some people, that isn't the case. People know that they have to eat, they know that they have to get nutrients, but they just feel like nothing sounds good. This can happen to everyone. Imagine you're in a rush and you know that you need to get in some nutrients, but just nothing sounds good. Nothing is really appealing and you just don't know what to do. You wish you could just have a vitamin with all the things you need and be done with it. For some people, they would eat the food even if it's not that appealing to them. They would eat it if it was ready in front of them, but just the thought of spending energy and time cooking it for an end result that they don't even love is just too much. So whatever the case may be, what should you do when you want to eat and you know you have to eat, but nothing sounds good? The first point I'm going to touch on is, should you eat if you aren't hungry? First of all, the reason that nothing may be sounding good to eat may be just because you're not hungry. So should you force yourself to eat something if you're not hungry? Well, the answer isn't black or white. I think that if you're very in tune with your body, you know how to listen to your hunger and fullness cues, if you know how to practice intuitive or mindful eating, then I really suggest that you don't force yourself to eat when you're not hungry. You can have food later when you're hungry, or you can just skip a meal and eat during the next one if you're not hungry. That's fine, but I really think that this needs a certain level of nutrition basics and being in tune with your body. Having a general meal schedule is important for healthy eating, but if none of the hunger cues are there, then you shouldn't be eating just because it's time to eat. I do want to point out that there may be situations in which these cues are clouded by something else. For instance, if you're really stressed or anxious over something, then you might not feel hunger because you're stressed, but you still need to get in some nutrients. I know that before an exam, I'm never hungry. I just really force myself to eat nutritious foods because I can't just spend 4 hours not eating and not having enough nutrients to fuel my body. So in these situations, your body still needs the nourishment, and it's important to still get some food in even if your hunger cues aren't there. And also, if you are recovering from an eating disorder, for example, skipping meals can be pretty triggering and should be avoided. And also, you may have the case of having work or having something to do during a particular period of time where you know that you have to eat before that, or else you're not going to be able to eat for a set number of hours. So all of these are occasions where you should kind of prefer eating even if you aren't really hungry. So now, what should you eat if you have no appetite? First case scenario, you're not hungry, but you need to eat. Like I was mentioning just before, in some situations you just have to eat. You know that this is your only chance and that you need the nutrients, and that if you don't eat now, that you're not gonna have the energy you need for the next few hours. A nice thing to have in these types of situations is a smoothie. It's a well-known fact that liquid food goes down much better than solid food. So if you whip up a little smoothie with some fruit, some spinach, maybe some nut butter or some nuts, some seeds, then you can have a nice mix of fats, carbs, and protein, and nice nourishment to hold you over for a few hours. And make sure that you add some water or milk or plant-based milk, anything to the smoothie to make it a little bit less thick and easier to drink, because having a really thick smoothie when you're not hungry is kind of hard. So similarly to having a smoothie, you can have some soup to get in some nutrients the easy way. And you can make some homemade soup with vegetables, add in maybe some lentils, potatoes for healthy carbs, add in some oils or some nuts and seeds for fats. And if you really don't feel like it, you can have a ready-made soup. Of course, it's not as good as homemade, but if you just really don't feel like cooking and still need to get in some food, then you can do that. Another thing you can do is to add some very nutritious toppings to the foods that you can eat, that you do feel like eating. For instance, if you feel like the only thing you can eat is like some lettuce leaves, then at least sprinkle a lot of seeds on there, some chia seeds, some pumpkin seeds, put some nutritional yeast, whatever you can to make it more filling. If you feel like you can only have like half a fruit, make sure to dip that in some nut butter, for instance. Really try to fill up your meals with the little things you add on them that can kind of feel like they're not there. And finally, a little tip that I sometimes use is to actually have a filling snack instead of a meal. We're kind of taught that we absolutely need like a full meal, every meal, regardless of our hunger cues. Sometimes we're just not hungry. We don't want the full meal, but we still need to get in some nutrition. And having a small healthy snack can be easier for us to eat than a huge meal. So there are so many good options. You can have like some bread with nut butter, you can have some fruit with nut butter, you can have some veggie sticks with hummus, you can have like a banana and chocolate, you can have some oatmeal with fruit. There's just really so many great healthy snack options that you can have that will give you some nutrients but won't make you overwhelmed with eating an entire meal. Second case scenario, you're actually hungry, but just nothing sounds good to eat. None of the foods you have are appealing, you just don't feel like cooking, don't feel like eating any of the foods that are available to you. So in this case, what do you do? So first of all, make sure you try some of the previous tips that I mentioned because some might work. And then here are a few other tips. The first thing would be to have some ready-to-eat meals available for you at all times. If nothing sounds good to eat, you don't want to, on top of that, spend time cooking something that you don't even crave. But if you have a few meals already pre-prepped in your fridge, then that is much easier. So you should really try to plan your meals when you can so that whenever there's nothing you want to eat, you can just revert to your meal planner and see, oh, okay, I'm just eating this and no questions asked, whatever. And even try to meal prep your meals if you can. So say on Sunday you want to do some batch cooking so that you have some meals ready throughout the entire week. Now this can be very time consuming and is not possible for a lot of people. So what I like to do is just to cook a little bit more the night before or the day before of the meal that you're going to make. Also, if you don't enjoy eating the same things like a few days in a row, you can just freeze the leftovers. Freeze any leftovers you have from like the week, for instance, and then the next week you can kind of play around with all of your different leftovers. You kind of need a big fridge and a big freezer for that, but another little solution would be to turn to your all-time favorite food. We all have this one food that we never get tired of, no matter how many times we eat it. For me, it's pasta. I could literally eat pasta every single day, even every single meal, and still not get sick of it. I know that if I just don't feel like eating anything, I can just make some mac and cheese and it'll be perfect. So if you have that type of food for you, eat it during these times when you really don't have anything that is appealing. Have that food. If it's not the healthiest, you can maybe try to make a little side of vegetables with it, but know that if it's once in a while, then it's totally fine. And finally, if nothing is working but you still need to get those nutrients, you should really whip up a really easy and simple nutritious meal that doesn't take up lots of time to make. So for instance, you can open up a can of beans with some rice and a can of green beans as well. I say canned because they are much easier and they don't require lots of preparation time. You can whip up a little tofu or egg omelet with some veggies that you have in your freezer, like frozen veggies that are already pre-cut and that you don't need to do anything to. You can have some whole wheat pasta, whole wheat spaghetti with like herbs and tomatoes. There are a bunch of meals that are nutritious, really easy to make, really quick, and pretty healthy, and that you can have in these types of situations. Because even if you don't particularly enjoy this meal, it's not the meal that you really wanted to have, you can find some comfort in knowing that you're at least fueling your body with nutritious, healthy foods. Except that you won't always feel satisfied. It can be really frustrating when you're eating just to fill yourself up and get in some nutrients, but just nothing you eat is actually hitting the spot. So you might find yourself rummaging through your snack pantry, trying to wolf down snacks in order to find something that really satisfies you, but that is obviously not the way to go. Of course, it's super important to eat to satisfy your emotional and physical hunger cues, but you need to know that not every meal has to be super satisfactory. Not every meal is going to be amazing, not every meal is going to be the best food ever, and that's just fine. That's just the way it is. Sometimes you have to kind of honor your practical hunger, meaning that it is practical for you to eat these certain foods at this certain time, and if it doesn't meet all of your emotional hunger needs, then sometimes that's okay. There's just nothing you can do. Just know that your next meal is only a few hours away, and you can have a super satisfying meal then. So sometimes you just might not feel like eating when mealtime comes around. This may be because you're not hungry, or just because all of the foods that are available just don't sound good to you. In most cases, it's still important to eat so that you can honor your practical hunger cues. Try having a smoothie, a soup, or a filling snack in order to get in some nutrients without the hassle of a full meal. Try adding some toppings that are pretty nutritious to get a little nutrient boost. And also you can make sure that you have some ready-to-eat meals in your fridge at all times. Don't hesitate to turn to your all-time favorite food if you just can't stomach anything else. And also, if you have the opposite problem and find yourself eating all the time out of boredom, then check out the video I made about that, and I will be putting it right here or in the description. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye!